The Massachusetts Secretary of Transportation is our guest this morning. Let's go on the record. Monica Tibbits now at the center of a decades-long effort to fix a dysfunctional mess, the MBTA. Where the rebuild stands right now, her work with GM Phil Ing, and when the riders could finally see a smoother ride. Let's go on the record.
From WCVB Channel 5, the inside word from Washington to Beacon Hill. Today's newsmakers are going on the record.
Welcome to OTR, everyone. I'm Ed Harding. As you can see, Sharman Sacchetti is out this Sunday, but we're joined by News Center 5 anchor Ben Cimino. He's at the desk with us this morning, and so is Monica Tibbits-Nutt. She was appointed as the Secretary of Transportation by Governor Maura Healey last November. Undersecretary before that. She also served on the MassDOT Board of Directors and Vice Chair of the Fiscal Management and Control Board, overseeing the MBTA. She holds degrees from the University of Southern Indiana and Ohio State, and a native Hoosier, right?
Yes.
Native Hoosier. So welcome. After living in Indiana for a number of years, welcome.
You have that connection.
I have the connection. Great to have you with us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Secretary, thanks for being here. We got to start with the MBTA. It's an issue we talk about in almost every single newscast of every single day. Even with an aggressive repair and upgrade program, every step forward seems to be accompanied by a step, maybe two steps back in some cases. What's your assessment about the current state of the T?
I think we're in the best place we've been. General Manager Ing came in, he was aggressive, very, very honest about the issues. And I think when you talk about every step forward, we take a step back, it's because quite honestly, a lot of these projects and a lot of this infrastructure hasn't been looked at in over 100 years.
So in part because of that, $24 billion with a B dollars is the figure that T General Manager Phil Ing has put forth just to get the system to a state of good repair where it should be on a daily basis.
Yes.
That's a lot of money for a state this size. Is the state ready to pony up that money?
We're working on this. You know, we started the Transportation Funding Task Force. That is what that group is tasked with doing. Finding every possible revenue option to put forward, not just to address this state of good repair, this backlog, but the next 10 to 20 years. We know riders are frustrated. You can't make decisions with a transportation system that's operating this way.
Because of what it is, and as you just said, it's what, a 100-year-old system, effectively. Is the T safe?
Absolutely. It's the same with any of our infrastructure. If it is not safe, we close it down. When we're looking at these shutdowns to actually address these slow zones, that's why these shutdowns are so long. We're going in and we're taking care of every possible thing. But there is no service that is operating that is not safe for our riders.
Can you change the culture? We've seen, just with the Green Line extension, brand new tracks that were laid wrong. Phil Ing came out and said people at the T knew that was a problem for months, if not longer, and no one said anything. Can he change the culture?
Absolutely, he has, because he put that out there. Before, there was no way a general manager would have said, we made a mistake.
Right.
And he said it, and he's holding his leadership team accountable, and he's going to continue to say, here is what's going on, here's what we're going to do to fix it. But the riders now know we're not going to sit here and lie to them.
Well, so let's pick up the conversation at that point, mentioning Phil Ing. He brings decades of engineering experience and transportation experience to this job, yet we still, and you know it, we still see issues even after the recent work has been done. Like Ben mentioned, a Green Line derailment hours after extended repair work. So how often do you, let's just talk about just logistics face to face. How often do you and Phil Ing go one-on-one and talk about what's going on?
Every single day,
Every single
times.
day.
Oh, we're constantly texting each other. We know that we have to be on top of this. He's out there every day looking at that track, out with the employees, and he is keeping me up to date on every single thing that's happening in real time.
Can you assure riders and taxpayers are getting the accurate and unvarnished facts about the state of the MBTA?
Absolutely.
Are you confident in that?
I am. They know everything that we know.
All right, let's switch from rails to roads. Hundreds of bridges in the Commonwealth are still rated as structurally deficient. One of those was on 128 South in Waltham, over the commuter rail lines there. A massive hole opened up in the bridge deck several weeks ago. It led to a massive backlog on 128 South in the evening rush. Is the state putting up enough money to fix these bridges? Everywhere I drive, I got to tell you, I drive all across this Commonwealth. We do that for our work. I see bridges that look like they're rusted beyond repair. Are we doing enough?
Absolutely. We can always do more, but we know where the deficiencies are. And it's the same talking about the MBTA. If a bridge is unsafe, it is closed. We have structural deficiencies, but those are being addressed, whether it is increased rehabilitation or whether it's full replacement. And a lot of our bridges, we're just replacing them.
Not to be insulting, I don't mean it by the nature of this question, but it almost seems like whack-a-mole. Oh, there's a hole in 128. Oh, there's a hole in Route 9. I mean, how do you solve a problem that is heavily congested and it deals with the extreme temperatures of summer to and through winter and the weather conditions that bring all that? I mean, how can you stay on top of a system like that in this large metropolitan area?
It's a lot of people doing a lot of work 24 hours a day. We know that we have a lot of problems and we are working on them. But what the public needs to understand, we are thousands of employees and we do work 24/7. We will get these addressed.
So as you know, spring, we were just talking about temperature. Spring is here, summer is not far off, and that will mean yet another lengthy shutdown of
the Sumner Tunnel.
Very good. So give us a quick update on the status of that project, please.
So we're in a really good position. We've been doing a significant number of weekend closures to try and make sure that we can do this next closure as efficiently as possible. We feel really good on this. We really genuinely do.
So you feel like you're on schedule then,
Absolutely.
Huh? And the schedule calls for this to be completed?
Hopefully.
Oh, there we go.
Hopefully at the end of that period. So we're going to be looking at August.
But as a wise man once told me, hope is not a strategy.
So this will be the last extended shutdown, you believe?
Yes, it will.
And are there penalties built in if the contractor goes beyond?
Yes, significant penalties. They're going to hit that date because they're not going to be able to afford not to.
Right. What did you always learn from the experiences? What did you learn from the Sumner shutdown last year that could be done better to make it more efficient as we go through the period of time this year?
I think for us, it's looking at what contractors we can have in there at the same time. But I honestly think the biggest thing we learned is how much you can get done with weekend closures and overnights. So we are able to minimize the amount of time we're having to disrupt the public, especially during their commute.
Right.
$350 million more in federal funding has been secured to replace the Cape Cod bridges. Certainly good news for a massive project. It's a lot of money coming from the feds now, but it is not nearly enough to get that job done. That job is running, somewhere, correct me if I'm wrong, in the $3 to $5 billion range, I think, for both bridges. November might say a lot more about future funding. We have a current occupant in the White House who would drive across those bridges every Thanksgiving when he would take his family to Nantucket versus a potential occupant in the White House in Donald Trump that's kind of been opposed to transportation projects in blue states. How nervous are you about the outcome of that election and the impact on this very needed project?
I mean, I think for a lot of people, we're nervous about the outcome. What I'm not nervous about is what the impact it's going to have on our infrastructure projects. We have funding plans and we're going to continue to put in contingencies. We're not just banking on Biden being reelected for that funding strategy. So
where's the rest of the money coming from?
It's what we're putting together right now. We have additional applications that are still in that we're waiting to hear back from.
You were, by the way, if I'm not mistaken, you were a guest of Congressman Richie Neal at the State of the Union,
yes.
Right? So a front row seat at the partisan divide. It was right at your feet. What did you take away from the experience?
I mean, it was amazing, but I think anyone that's seen the State of the Union in previous years, it was a very different feel. I think the decorum is very different, and I think it really shows...
Good different or bad different?
Bad different.
Okay, yep.
And I think everyone saw that watching it on TV. It was even more contentious in person.
Before we move on, though, quickly from the Cape Bridges, any chance those get a toll on them in the future?
We are not looking at that at this point.
At this point, but you're not ruling it out?
We're not ruling out anything, especially from a revenue standpoint.